You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. Krish Vignarajah is with us today, and that's a real gift. Krish is the president and CEO of Global Refuge. And Global Refuge is a nonprofit organization that supports refugees and migrants entering the United States. It's one of 9 refugee resettlement agencies working with the Office of Refugee Resettlement and one of 2 that serves unaccompanied refugees, minors. Global Refuge also advocates for policies and practices relating to immigration and detention, and therein lie her tales. Krish previously served in the Obama White House as policy director for First Lady Michelle Obama, and at the State Department as senior advisor under Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and Secretary of State John Kerry. Krish is the daughter of immigrants herself, and she attended Yale College, where she earned a master's degree in political science and a bachelor's in molecular, cellular, and developmental biology. That's a Bachelor of Science. And it was a magna cum laude and a Phi Beta Kappa. She was a Marshall Scholar at Oxford University, where she received an M.Phil in International Relations before returning to Yale Law School, where she served on the Yale Law Journal. She's had quite a career. And Krish will be with us shortly to talk about the realities of refugee populations, specifically what women and children face, in ways you will never forget. In just a few moments, after this next brief message. Subscribe to this program on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter at WMC Live, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/WMC Live, and visit us at WMCLive.com for more information about our show and our guests.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Krish Vignarajah. Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. Very good to have you here.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Well, I'm very glad to have you because, I don't know how you are not climbing walls and bursting through the ceiling at this point, given what's happening to refugee populations and to migration populations and what's happening most of all, I have to say, to women and children, because they are the last of the least and the worst off and the least paid attention to. And you have been very active all your life in defending them and protecting them and trying to do justice by and for them. I know that at the White House you served as policy director for Michelle Obama, and you led her signature Let Girls Learn initiative. I take it that that initiative, like so much else in the Trump era, is dead right now. Is it?
Yeah, so it's such an important question, Robin. And, First Lady Michelle Obama had been so thoughtful in terms of ensuring the impact of Let Girls Learn, that thankfully it does actually live on, not as a White House initiative, but through the foundation that her and her husband lead. So it's now called Global Girls Alliance. But one of the aims that she had in the last couple years of the administration was to ensure that those efforts didn't just, die with political transition, but obviously the need not just continues, but it in many cases grows. And so thankfully she continues to work on the issue through her foundation efforts.
She is so wonderful. She is just terrific. But I know that you were very concerned at that point and since and before, for that matter, with refugee populations, and 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 migration and engagement with religious communities and the legal dimensions of U.S. foreign policy, particularly relating to Africa and the Middle East. And I know that you worked with USAID, which of course got it right in the teeth at the very beginning. Um, I think that most people, when they hear women and children refugees, go into a Migo effect. Mine eyes glaze over. They feel they've heard it before. They feel it's tragic. They feel it's very sad. It makes them very sad, and they don't want to hear more. Or the principled ones among them do, but there aren't enough of them, us. And perhaps you can, like no one else could, put a face and a persona to the woman refugee or to women refugees that you've worked with and talked with, and what they go through and the kinds of issues that they face on a day-to-day basis. That would help.
Yeah, I think it's so important to not just, talk about the statistics, but as you said, describe the kinds of clients we work with.
Yes.
The reality is that in so many ways, women and girls are at particular risk in the global migration system. Women are at greater risk of exploitation and gender-based violence, particularly in refugee camps around the world. So when you describe, Let Girls Learn, it was actually one of the most impactful, informative ways that I became so engaged on issues of immigration, because you realize that, in refugee camps where there's no kind of permanent education system, that we are at risk, and we are seeing the loss of a generation of girls and boys. And I've seen that when families are forced to make these tough decisions, sometimes it results in desperation, in human trafficking situations that obviously
Of course.
girls are so, vulnerable to. We have seen that refugee and migrant women and girls face challenges in transit. In addition to what they experience at refugee camps, those journeys include family separation, psychosocial stress and trauma, health complications, particularly for pregnant women, and of course, physical harm and injury. In terms of the mothers and the women, they are so often caretakers for children and elderly family members, which further deepens their need for protection and support and makes the effect of family separation even greater. And then, of course, women face increased oppression and violence, often in the very countries they are looking to flee. And I'll
Yeah.
give you just one example of Afghanistan, because, just last week, we saw the administration revoke temporary protected status for Afghans who are here in the US. And
Yes.
I met with a number of young women who had come from Afghanistan who were advancing. You could call them American values, you could call them global values, freedom of expression, gender
Civil
equality.
society.
Exactly, yeah. And, they worked alongside the U.S. Embassy, they worked alongside civil society to advance these basic human rights, and as a result, faced Taliban retribution, death threats.
Mm.
They fled to the US. They were excited to start a new life here. We actually had Angelina Jolie come to one of our locations in Northern Virginia, and you could tell how moved every kind of leader in women's rights here in the U.S. has experienced when they meet with our clients, because they know that they are still fighting the important fights that need to be
Of course.
fought for us to actually make real advances.
What will happen to them?
That's what we're worried about. So temporary protected status offers protection in the U.S. For those whose home countries are experiencing war, natural disaster, other extreme conditions. The administration made a determination that conditions actually got significantly better in
Uh-huh.
Afghanistan.
Oh,
It is not what,
oh, that's nice to know.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's,
Oh, yeah. I'm sure there's a real
uh,
huge community.
it's not what news accounts are reporting. It's not what we hear from our families
Uh-huh.
that we serve every day. And so what it means is there are an estimated 11,700 who this will affect Afghans who lose TPS. And so that means that they don't any longer have a lawful basis for remaining in the U.S., which means that they would be subject to removal and deportation. And I think it just, it shamefully ignores the growing number of edicts and decrees that are restricting Afghan women and girls' rights, which have created a state of gender apartheid that is really one of the most repressive in the entire world.
Yeah.
So I think it really takes uh, us so much further back. I think it uh, dismisses what we've said before, which is that we had a moral and a military commitment to these women, to these girls, to these families. And I really hope that we reverse course and we keep our promise.
But how do you see us doing that? I mean, uh, we out here in the real world try not to despair. I try every day. I have my 15 minutes of utter and total despair, and then I pick myself up again
Yeah.
and start over again. But um, it is, as you of all people know, extremely difficult, and uh, the odds are at this point not very much against us, except in those rare occasions where somebody actually stands for principle.
Yeah.
But and people like you whose lives are on the line and whose entire modus operandi is one of service. Um, how do you not despair? How do you keep going?
Yeah. So I always think about that line in Saving Private Ryan, earn it. And I think about the lack of volition I had in my parents' decision to come from Sri Lanka as the country was on the brink of civil war and come to the US. My parents came in their 40s. They had no jobs, just $200 in their pockets to
Oh,
very young kids in their arms. And it was this country that gave us hope and protection and a bright future. It was a community that bandied around us as we were, newcomers, and everything was entirely new. And, exactly to your set of questions about the plight of women and girls. I remember when I was in high school, this will kind of date me in terms of I was using Juno, so dial up, first time accessing the internet.
mhm.
And I had typed in my full name. So I typed in Krishanti Vignarajah. And still today, if you type this in, you will see a set of links by Amnesty International, a number of other human rights organizations that refer to Krishanti Vignarajah, who was born and lived in Sri Lanka. And on her way from school, she was stopped at a government checkpoint because, she was, like me, part of the ethnic and religious minority.
Uh-huh.
She was detained. She was gang raped by military, the soldiers. She was murdered,
Oh,
dismembered, and then placed in a shallow grave. And she grew up in the same area that my parents did. My aunts actually went to the same school that she did. She was only a couple years older than me.
oh,
And so I think about how different my life could have been,
yeah.
but for the grace of God, but for the refuge that this country gave me. And I can't do anything but fight for a better future for girls like her, um, the girls that we serve today. Um, I know America at its best. I travel around the country still today, and I talk to audiences in some of the most conservative and the most liberal states. And the reality is that when you tune out the political pundits and social media,
And
and
rhetoric.
right, it's hard. I mean, don't get me wrong; it's hard to
Right.
unplug, but I still see the generosity of the American spirit and the fact that there's so much more in terms of the values that we still share, that unite us than divide us. Now, that means that we still have to govern based on the better angels,
Yeah.
rather than the devilish nature of politics. But that's what gives me hope. And we have to succeed. There is no failure. It's just not an option for the girls who depend on us. And so I think that's what gives me hope.
No, we were working a while ago on um, there were I think 12 women judges who had been um, free and in that brief interregnum had been sitting on their benches and been judges, uh, and many of them had been in family court, and they had ruled in cases where the men had been battering the women, and so they had ruled rather sternly in those cases. And now the Taliban were letting these men run free. So we learned that there were two of them had already been assassinated on the street, and that they were trying desperately to get themselves and their families, because you know that an Afghan family never travels alone if possible. So their families were substantial, maybe as many as 10 people out of the country, and we were able to raise the money and just independently as feminists to raise the money and get the papers, because the only way we could get them out was land route through Pakistan, but Pakistan demanded that they had to show a third country that they were on the way to. So we had to get all that in place, and we got them out. We got them to Australia. And that kind of working together of women for women and children, it gladdens the heart.
That's exactly right. And I think that is what has to give us sustenance today. Because we just the power of what America represents, we just can't ignore. And it's examples like that. I think it's also just the global leadership that other countries pay attention to. For example, when I think about refugee resettlement, this is a program that has had bipartisan support. It's a program where the U.S. has always led the charge.
Mm,
And when we lead, other countries follow.
mhm.
But when we take a step back, other countries use that as an excuse to
Of
do
course.
less. And I think at a time when we have 120 million displaced globally, most of those are within their home country, and most of those are within they remain within the region. So, I don't want anyone fearing that the U.S. is going to do it alone. We're not. But we play a critical role in terms of leadership. And I think refugee resettlement's a great example of a program that has had strong bipartisan support. It's a program by which people wait their turn, they go through extreme vetting, and they come into the US. And so I hope that we will restore programs like that have been suspended by the administration. Um,
What is their excuse? What is their excuse, Krish?
yeah. So,
Is it
candidly, I think
costly? Did it cost money? Cost too much money?
it's a great question. Yeah. So, and I've said this, that sometimes it's really troubling to even try to debate these
Of course.
decisions, because it's not a fair fight, because some of most of what you're hearing is misinformation.
Yeah.
So, for example, when Vice President Vance criticizes the Catholics, and describes refugee resettlement as illegal immigration,
Mm,
that's just fiction, and we have to fight it with fact.
yeah.
And what their excuse is right now, you've heard it from Stephen Miller as well, is they're saying that this is illegal immigration.
Mhm.
And I think there's a conflation with what we're seeing at the southern border. And I think that's where we just let's debate kind of, the values of this, the cost benefit analysis of this, but it should be a fair fight, right? It should actually be grounded in facts as opposed to fiction. And I think we win that debate every single time we have it. But right now, what you're having is a lot of fear mongering and
Yeah.
a lot of political grandstanding. And I think this is where we need more voices to kind of push back. We need more voices to say, well, actually, what you're saying is not true. Because I think that if we took that case to the American public, we'd be able to restore many of these legal pathways that have worked and should work.
Sure, they should work. It's so disheartening when they don't, and when fact and reason even,
Mhm.
science for that matter. I mean, when all of the givens are gone or are being systematically destroyed before your eyes. Um, so yeah, we got a lot of work to do. And the
Well, and I
asylum.
just want to add to that, Robin, if you don't mind. It's
No, go ahead.
also that, I mean, yes, very much the debate should include the fact that we are, in many ways, a nation of immigrants. In many ways, providing global humanitarian relief is who we are. It's the moral character of this country.
What are we ashamed of? Why aren't we proud
Ex-
of that?
Exactly. And but also in addition to that, right? It is a economic it's in our economic self-interest. There is a
Okay.
national security imperative. And so I think that's where we also need to be highlighting how we have the lowest birth rate since the census has been tracking this issue. To take care of our kids, to take care of our parents, we do need to have a robust legal pathway for immigrants.
Uh-huh.
We need to keep Social Security and Medicare afloat. We need to fill the jobs that are going unfilled. We've seen the economic stagnation of countries like Japan when the demographics become an inverted pyramid.
Yeah.
And I think that when you think about the national security implications of how we retain our competitive advantage against countries like China. Immigration is such a critical part of that. And so I think there's a real opportunity to kind of elaborate on all of the arguments for why immigration is important.
Well, of course there is. It's literally the nose on our faces. But when you can't even get it for asylum seekers, it begins to be problematic. Um, and because they do not traffic in reason, our adversaries they traffic in not just but anti reason. Um, that it makes it all harder. Um, God, it's disastrous. It now Global Refuge, and this is interesting because I normally would would not be interviewing you, because Global Refuge is a faith-based organization, and it maintains collaborative relationships with Evangelical Lutheran Church in America and the Latvian Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, because it was started by people concerned with the plight of Lutheran refugees after World War II, I believe. Um, yeah. So, but what is wonderful is that it expanded. I mean, the roots of the organization went back to the 1800s, but then it expanded so that everyone was covered, refugee or not, religious or not, and this is the kind of reasoning, the kind of political position that we need. And we need it, in fact, interestingly enough, from the Christian community. So I hope that you folks take the lead in that respect, um, because we haven't heard as much from the Christian community as I would like.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, and I think that is an important point because right now, I think there is a little bit of a divide between evangelicals and other Christian denominations. I also
right.
think in many ways that we represent the beauty of kind of the American approach to the work of welcome. So here I am, a Hindu married to a Catholic leading a Lutheran kind of historical faith-based nonprofit. And our nonprofits that we partner with all across the country, many are Lutheran social service organizations, some are Muslim organizations, some are Jewish family services, others are secular community-based nonprofits. And I think for for someone who, my family fled because we were part of the ethnic and religious minority.
Yeah.
The idea that this work is undertaken by Lutherans working alongside Episcopalians, working alongside Catholics, working alongside Jews, working alongside Muslims, working alongside Baptists. It's a pretty amazing dynamic. I also think, to your point about being outspoken, we face at this moment an attack like I've never seen before on faith communities who support, as a matter of their religions, welcoming the stranger, and different
Hmm.
religions describe that in different fashions. But I really, it's uh, extraordinary to see the kinds of attacks on faith-based organizations, on religions,
Hmm.
on um, community-based nonprofits as kind of the the bad guys. I've never seen that before.
It
I'd
is.
be
It's like a
curious.
world turned upside down and inside.
Yeah, I mean, do you have a sense of kind of why we're in this unique moment?
Well, no, I mean, it just, I think, I think that there is an inside out, and I think that people know. I think that people intuit and do understand what's going on, but I think that they're so afraid, and they're so afraid of. I mean, look at how the Republicans went along with Trump, and look at how um, uh, otherwise principled people, supposedly principled people, or half principled people, shut up and sat down. So I think that there's such incredible fear that when somebody stands up and speaks out, then it can start a cascade. But the cascade, we have to keep priming it. We have to keep priming that cascade till it is strong enough to sweep people up in it. Because then I think there's no stopping us. And I, I just I can't believe. I mean, I'm still getting over the election, you have to understand. So I haven't been myself since November. But I look, I'm 84 now, or 83, sorry. I turn 84 in a few months. And I have spent my entire life as a writer and working in social justice organizations and for social justice causes. So it's a little despairful to find oneself on the verge of turning up one's toes and seeing the world in the situation that it is.
Yeah.
But I think that as long as people like you are in positions even relative to power, there is hope. And I think that because I don't see that changing, I don't see you being driven out. I don't see you running with your tail covered. I don't see, and there are millions of you, and as long as that's the case, we'll pull it off. And here is the other thing, Krish. I think that, well, it's strange to say it, but even if we don't, even if it's too late for this little bright blue marble of exquisite beauty, um, this planet, then at the very least, this is the best way to go. Trying. You know? I mean,
Yeah.
this is the I
Yeah.
can't think of doing anything else. I mean, of course, this is what we would do. But the truth is, I don't think we will have to turn in throw in the towel, because I think something unexpected can happen, um, and to religious people, that will probably be miraculous. To those of us who are not religious, it will be something else. But I think it comes from goodwill and hope. And I think the work that you're doing, and the people that you work with and have all your life. I noticed from your bio that you began your career. Excuse me. I've got a I've got a bad throat. Um, but that you began your career as a child. Um, you know, going around and sort of campaigning for Barbara Mikulski. You went knocking door to door with your mother in support of her. And
Yeah, I mean, obviously, she's such an a a force to be reckoned with. So to your
Yes,
point about, that Margaret Mead quote about, it just takes a small group of people. I think it just takes one Barbara Mikulski to change the world.
that's right.
And I think she's always been such a pioneer, has always stood up for what's right. Um, I remember meeting with her one time, and she said to me, "People are going to say to you what they said to me, which is you don't look the part." To which you say, "Well, this is what the part looks like,"
Yes.
and that has stuck with me, because I think it's that it's that kind of resilience, right? And willingness to challenge conventional wisdom that I think is so important right now.
Do you or can you say about at least one, maybe two or three specific concrete things that people should put their energies into backing um, in terms of refugee and asylum seeking and migratory populations?
Yeah,
Um,
I really appreciate that question because I do think that is what a lot of people are thinking about right now in terms of what they can do.
yeah.
So I think first, we need people to raise their voices as advocates. Talk with family members, post on social media, contact elected officials, just because we need voices advocating for a robust and effective immigration system that works for everyone, right?
Mhm.
I think while there aren't many new refugees at the moment, there are many who we resettled in 2024 who may need to see a neighborly face now more than ever.
Oh,
So for those folks who want to, maybe they don't want to be a kind of a message ambassador, but they want to roll up their sleeves.
yes.
Please go to the Global Refuge website because you can volunteer through us, one of our affiliates at the local level. We know our clients, are just going through so much right now that a helping hand to acclimate to their new lives is incredibly important. And then I think, for those who just want to visit our website, to the point we were discussing earlier in terms of fighting fiction with fact, our website has facts. There's refugee stories. We talk about the plight of women and girls. Making a donation to support this work, even when government is unwilling to fund it, is going to be incredibly important in the next few years.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's fun, and it's very practical. It's very grounded. It's very real, and I think it's very doable. And if you get enough people
Absolutely.
doing it, then you've
That's
got
right.
some change. Well, you are really wonderful. Thank you so much, Krish. You are very, very special, and I'm so glad that we were able to have you on and that you were able to talk about.
Oh, thanks so much, Robin. Really love this conversation. So grateful for the chance to chat with you.
Oh, well, take care, and somehow, one way or the other, we'll do it, won't we? Yeah, we'll do it.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have to take a short break here, but then I'll be right back with some fighting words. The Women's Media Center, founded in 2005 by Jane Fonda, Gloria Steinem, and myself, is a progressive, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization working to make women visible and powerful in media. You can learn more about the WMC at womensmediacenter.com.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Celebrating what's left. Those are fighting words. It's been a chilled spring, cold and rainy where I live. People splash through the streets in galoshes, under umbrellas, muttering to themselves, when is March going to leave like a lamb after entering like a lion? I huddle inside by the crackling fire and wonder if it will still need to be crackling in June. Then again, I think such weather saved my life. You see, I was in my beloved city garden, potting a new little plant in the corner by the potting table, out of the wind, because it was a very windy day. I mean, very. The maple tree and the dogwood were bent precariously and leaning. Leaves were blurring by, and one or two of the lighter pots had been sent rolling. I thought to myself that I should really clip and shape the hydrangeas, but then decided that the weather was just too fierce, and I should go inside and do the barbering work tomorrow. So I finished potting, put the pot aside, and went indoors. 10 seconds later, the 300-year-old towering ailanthus tree sent one of its largest limbs crashing down exactly where I had been standing. It narrowly missed the pot I had been planting, but would surely have unskulled me. It smashed all of the garden furniture to smithereens, though it left the exquisite small waterfall we had built in the opposite corner. It spared the new dogwood, and thank goodness it spared the majestic lilac bush that makes you drunk with lilac fragrance for 2 weeks each spring. Beyond that, although some roses did suffer, everything else came back. Even the kiwi and morning glory vines that had been climbing my neighbor's wall revived. The tenacity of life is truly awesome, in the real meaning of the word. So, once I had stopped shaking and was recovering from the fact that most of the quiet little street on which I live was now splayed across my garden, I called the tree expert people. And they came and were wonderful, rappelling up the tree dramatically and getting the leftover, still ominously swinging branches and boughs down. And when they were gone, I could celebrate, well, what was left. Celebrating what's left, that's quite a thing, isn't it? Because chairs and a table can always be replaced, but not a homemade waterfall, or a regal lilac bush, or a delicate dogwood. Or me. Yes, me. I know that some people would consider such a narrow missing of my skull as a sign of something mystical or magical. Heaven, in which I do not believe, forbid for me to disabuse them of such thinking, although I tend more toward the pure chance category. But it did remind me that governments come and governments go, and so do tyrants. But that doesn't mean one has to take them seriously either. One can always celebrate what's left, and build it, replace it, improve it even. So the wind finally died down toward the end of May, and the rain finally stopped. And people stripped off their galoshes, furled their umbrellas, and sat down at the sidewalk cafes to have brunch in the sunshine. Perhaps they were doing the very thing that was mystical and magical. And that's our show for this week. You can follow me on social media at The Robin Morgan. You can check out my blog at robinmorgan.net, and you can find my new novel, Parallax, and my just-out new book of poems, Harvesting Darkness, wherever books are sold. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Views expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. Executive producer, as well as founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. WMC president and co-executive producer for this program, Julie Burton. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Join us next time on Women's Media Center Live.